The number one mistake new homeowners make is underestimating the cost involved with owning property and what they can actually afford. Have you ever dreamt of owning your own home in South Africa, but you're wondering what your salary can actually afford? Buckle up, because in this video I'm going to talk about how much house you can afford by salary. A general rule of thumb, or something the bank recommends, is allocating 30% of your gross monthly salary towards your home. This allows you to comfortably afford all your other expenses alongside your monthly repayments. There's a few other factors that affect our credit worthiness or our affordability to buy a certain type of property, and the first one is your credit score. Of course, you need to have a good credit score, because this is the rating you receive, which proves to lenders whether you can actually afford to make your bond repayments. Another factor is your debt to income ratio. This is simply a ratio that determines the amount of debt you have compared to your income that you receive. The higher your debt to income ratio, the lower your affordability will be, and vice versa. Another factor is a down payment. The bigger your down payment or deposit, the bigger your affordability will be. It just shows the bank that you have disposable income to use as a deposit, which basically means at the end of the day you will be able to afford a bigger property. Then another important factor is interest rates, because the higher the interest rates, the lower your purchasing power will be. If interest rates are lower, you can effectively afford more home for your salary. Then of course another factor is the loan term. The shorter the loan term, the higher your premium will be, and of course the longer your loan term, the lower your premium will be. So if you look at buying a property, these are a few factors that you need to take into consideration. A recent study suggests that the average salary in South Africa is around 24,000 Rand up until 26,000 Rand, based on data in June 2024. I know this might seem a bit high for some people, and because we have such high inequality in South Africa, a small percentage of high income earners basically shoots up the average income of South Africans. Your average salary looks more like 5,500 to 6,500 Rand in a month. If you are someone that falls in this price class, you can always consider something like a FLISP subsidy program, and I'll share more on that later in this video. Let's say we work on a salary of 24,000 Rand. That basically means 30% of a 24,000 Rand salary gives us an amount of 7,200 Rand. This is the amount we can afford for a repayment towards a home loan, and let's look at what type of properties we can actually buy. I'm simply going to open property 24. I'm just going to click on a random property and scroll down where it shows us bond calculator, and there's a portion that says what do I qualify for based on my income, and I'm going to click on this. And this is really important because this is a great way to determine how much property you can afford based on your salary. So we can see it shows us gross monthly income, net monthly income, monthly expenses, interest rate, and the loan term. These are all factors that will ultimately determine the amount of property that we can buy. Let's say again we use a 24,000 Rand salary. What is our net income going to be? What I like to do is to jump onto tax term and input the amount that we received, and we said it's 24,000. We received this salary monthly, and we are obviously under 65 years. If we calculate the net salary that we will receive, our take home pay would be around 20,600 Rand, and let's input this at our net monthly salary. So based on these numbers, I would say that at least 50% of your monthly income goes to your expenses. So let's say it's around 10,000 Rand that goes directly to your expenses. And let's work on a prime rate of 11.75% over 30 years. That shows that our monthly bond repayment can be up to 7,200 Rand, or the amount we qualify for is 713,000 Rand. If we change our loan term, for example, to 20 years, you'll see the amount we can afford goes down to 664,000 Rand. So your loan term combined with your interest rate will obviously affect the amount you can afford. At the end of the day, this calculator is only used as an estimate. All the factors that I mentioned will at the end of the day affect the amount you qualify for. So I would suggest to reach out to a bond originator and do a formal pre-approval. By doing a pre-approval, you will know exactly how much you qualify for, meaning you know exactly what price class you can look for. This will just help you mitigate the risk of overextending yourself financially. If we go back and have a look at the type of properties, I would go and change the maximum price to, let's say, 800,000 Rand and search for a specific property in a certain area. What I like to do when I make offers or look for properties that I want to make an offer on is to change the order to most recent, and I'll scroll down and click on the last page. This basically means the properties that is displayed here is properties that has been listed on the market for the longest time. This effectively means that the owners, if this property is still available, will be willing to accept a lower offer, and this is just based on my experience. So if we see, for example, a property that we like, let's just click on a random one, which is worth 650,000 Rand. What I always like to teach people is to always make lower offers. This means that the lower you can buy the property for, the more equity you have, the lower your bond repayments will be, and the more value you effectively get. And here we can see that our monthly repayment is 6,500 Rand. Something else that I want to add, and this is something that a lot of people forget about, is the extra cost involved with owning a property. If you rent a property for 6,500 Rand, you'll pay your rent and you'll pay your water and electricity, and that's basically it. When you own a home, you get stuff like rates and taxes, levies, maintenance, water and electricity. So there's so many different costs involved, but the main one we need to focus on is rates and taxes and levies. If we scroll to this specific property, and just remember it's literally a random one that I chose, we can see that the levies on this property is a massive 2,364 Rand, and our levies is 290 Rand. This means if we add the levies with the rates and taxes, it's an extra 2,654 Rand that we have to add to our 6,561. So that means the total amount that you will pay at the end of the month is going to be 9,215 Rand, which is above our initial affordability of 7,200 Rand. This means that if you want to buy this property, you will put yourself under financial pressure. And it's very important to take note of this, because you will be the person that effectively has to cover that shortfall or pay that additional amount every month, no matter what. Again, let's use another example, and let's use a high income earner's salary, and let's say you can earn 100,000 Rand per month. I'll jump back to tax term, type in 100,000 Rand, and we'll calculate the take-home pay this person will receive. So from 100,000 Rand, you will have a net salary of 68,000 Rand. And let's say again, the monthly expenses is 50% of your net salary, which is 34,000 Rand. With the same interest rate and the same loan term, this means you can afford a property worth almost 3 million Rand. That's a monthly bond repayment of 30,000 Rand. If we go to our property 24 and let's change the maximum price to, let's make it 3 million, but let's scroll down and have a look at this property. So this is obviously a really good looking property. It seems like it's also in an estate. So let's see if there's extra cost involved. So here we can see levies is 3,162, rates and taxes an additional 1,600 Rand. So let's just add the levies plus the rates and taxes. That means that 4,762 Rand is going to be added onto your monthly bill. If we scroll down and we change this to 30 years and we pay full price, for example, this basically means that although you can qualify for a property worth 3 million Rand, if you add your rates and taxes and your levies, with your monthly repayment, it's basically 30,000 Rand. Although the property that you can afford is more than 2.5 million Rand, if you factor in your rates and taxes and your levies, it's really much more expensive. The reason I'm showing you this is so that you are aware of the additional cost involved when owning a property. The reason why so many South Africans struggle to get to their second, third or 10th property is because they overextend themselves financially. And what I want to teach you in this video is that instead of buying a property worth 713,000 Rand, I would focus on buying 2 smaller properties that you can rent out. So the tips I wanted to share is don't use up your affordability with your first purchase. Rather buy a smaller property and grow your portfolio steady over time instead of just owning one fancy property. The second tip is to always make lower offers on the property so that you can get more value for the price that you pay. Again, make sure you look at older listings because that's where you can get good offers and get more value. Make sure you are aware of levies and rates and taxes and any additional costs that property ownership entails. Another thing that I wanted to mention is to remember about bond and registration cost and transfer duty. If you are a low income earner, the chances are that you don't necessarily have a huge savings account to just pay for these transfer costs with cash. Luckily, there is something like a FLISP subsidy, which is a program that helps lower income earners pay for their bond and registration costs or even deposits. If you haven't heard about the FLISP program before, you can simply Google FLISP and go onto their website. We're going to go to FLISP's website and click on register here and follow the prompts that pops up. So first, I obviously just need to agree to, I'm not going to fill this in, it's just as an example. Let me just say start, next, and I'm just going to agree to the terms, click next. Then you can fill in all your details and I'm just going to skip through the boring stuff. But it will ask you stuff like, do you already have a home loan, applied for a home loan, or already own your own home? It will ask questions like, do you earn less than this amount per month? And you can get a subsidy of between 27,000 Rand depending on your exact situation. It obviously asks if you're a citizen, and you can obviously go through these questions on your own and see at the end of the wizard whether you qualify for a voucher or not. If you are a low income earner, I would suggest focusing on increasing your income. Live within your means and save as much as you can. Focus on building a solid credit score because this is very, very important. I recently made a video about how you can improve your credit score. I'll share the link down in the description, so make sure you check that out because there's a lot of vital tips that will help you if you are a low income earner. At the end of the day, you will have to be more patient than someone that earns more than you instead of just trying to buy a random property. Don't put yourself under financial strain just to be able to say I own my property, because renting in the short term is definitely a better financial decision because it's so much cheaper.